Welcome to the HIV podcast. Each week we focus on a person, historical event or pop culture moment linked to HIV and explore the story of what actually happened. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Jess, and between us we've been working in the field of HIV for 40 years. Our aim is to get as many people as possible HIV educated. This week's episode of the HIV podcast is sponsored by AuraQuick. AuraQuick HIV self-tests give you more control, allowing you to test yourself accurately anytime, anywhere using an oral fluid sample. No blood, no needles, just results in 20 minutes. AuraQuick is easy, painless, proven and private. Available from the Terence Higgins Trust, Superdrug, Amazon and pharmacies throughout the UK. Additional information can be found at uk.auraquick.com. Welcome to another sponsored episode of the HIV podcast, Sarah. It's getting regular, this, sponsorship.
I know. It's good, isn't it?
Do you want to know what's not going well in the HIV podcast life?
What?
Oh, you look sad. Don't worry, it's not that bad. It's not that bad at all. We joined Threads last week.
Is that a bad thing then?
Well, no, it's not a bad thing. It's just, I'm not going to lie, I still don't actually really get it. I still don't know how to use it. Anyone wants to, point us in the right direction. Hashtags, you don't use them. What do we do? Anyone, what do we do?
So it's like Twitter, but there's no hashtags.
There's no hashtags and it's a much kinder community. And one of our listeners actually commented on our first post. So I had put a post up that was a GIF that said, basically just like nobody panic type GIF. Basically, we have no idea what's going on. And Stuart, one of our lovely, lovely listeners, commented and said, I'll await the discussion about Threads on the podcast. So this, Stuart, is for you. And if you have any ideas on how I use it, let me know.
See, I mean, it won't surprise you to know that I'm not even on it.
That doesn't surprise me, Sarah.
It's a step too far.
Yeah.
But it's been wildly popular, hasn't it, already?
Yes, but I think mainly because everyone just landed on the same morning, because it was it last Thursday? But anyway, everyone landed on the same morning and it was very much just a hi, we're here. What are we doing? How do we use this? So I quite enjoyed that bit where nobody else seemed to know what was going on. But now I feel like other people actually get it and still I do not. Should I be asking questions? Should everything be a question rather than a post? Like I said, let me know.
I have a shout out to do.
Really?
Yes. From someone at our lovely LGBTQIA plus group.
Wait, but hang on, can I stop you here? Because the last time we shouted someone out, we ended up talking about our vaginas. So I just wanted to make you aware that I can't be responsible for where this conversation is going to go once you give them a shout out.
They're aware of that.
Okay,
I did say, look, he didn't even ask for a shout out, but I'm going to do one anyway, because he says every time he hears us talking about Will on the podcast, as in Will, Lost Boys of Soho, who I, by the way, class as a close personal friend now. It's in my inner circle. And I know he'll be thrilled about that. Who doesn't want to be near my inner circle?
I saw that he emailed you and called you Your Majesty. So I thought that was pretty awesome.
It's what cemented our friendship. Anyway, He hears us talking about Will all the time. And he constantly is like, oh, God, I'm called Will too. So Will, you know who you are. This is for you. We're talking about you this time.
Oh, well, hi, second Will. Will too.
Yeah, Will Mark, not Mark too. That sounds a bit derogatory, actually.
Yeah, other Will. How about that? Will and other Will.
Amazing.
There's your new nickname.
Isn't being called other Will.
Yeah, but
like spare Will. Will use if our real friend Will isn't around. No.
That's true. But do you remember, so at the centre, there used to be two Jesses, didn't there? And there'd be Jess, other Jess. Whichever Jess you were talking to, the other one was other Jess.
Oh, see, I always thought, but well, service users used to say tall Jess and small Jess.
Oh, I've heard them say big Jess and little Jess, and I had to say to her, so I probably should give some context to this. She was quite tall. I'm quite short. Well, I'm very short. She was very tall. And so they would call us big Jess and little Jess. And I said to her one day, because she was quite tall and slight, and I'm sort of shorter and more rotund. So I said, which one do you think is which? Because if I'm big Jess, I'm going to be really upset, because that won't be suited my height, will it?
Oh, this is like when I call my mum and dad, when I ring them, and my dad will always be, typical dad, I'll get your mum. And then I'll hear him calling and saying, it's the big one on the phone. And I mean, I hope he means the older one.
But this is it. People need to clarify that, don't they?
What do you mean the big one? It's not the big one. It's the older one, is it? Just use my name. You've only got two of us. How hard can it be?
Yeah, he's like, no, it's too much effort. It's just the big one.
Just yelling that down the garden. The big one's on the phone.
Oh, wow. Oh,
Kids
yeah,
used to
no.
call me pudding when I was little as well.
Oh, I like that, though. That's such a nice term of endearment.
You wouldn't ever use that now, surely. Let's try it at the drop-in tomorrow.
My mum used to call me Fanny Fanakapan.
Oh.
Why?
Like you was predicting the future.
Yeah, oh my God, she's the preceder to this. She's done this, Sarah. She's done this to us. You were pudding and I was Fanny Fanakapan.
Wow. Why?
Yeah.
What does it mean?
I don't know. I'm going to have to Google it now. It just came to me like a flashback.
Bernice, what happened?
I'm going to change the intro. It'll be, I'm Pudding and I'm Fanny Fanakapan and we've worked in the HIV sector for 40 years.
Let's do it.
Okay, fab. We are taking a diversion today, aren't we? Away from our normal scheduled content. What are we doing?
I'm nodding wisely.
Yeah, she knows what's going on. She's got that nod of somebody that knows exactly what's happening. Maybe she's buying a bit of time to think about it, but that's all right.
No, I was just sidetracked by what I should have for dinner. We know this. It happens. If ever look, we have like a far away look in my eye, it's because I'm like, what meal shall I eat next?
What are you going to eat?
I don't know. I haven't had enough thinking time.
Oh, do you want a couple more minutes and then we'll carry on?
Looking off into the distance.
Yeah.
Anyway, no, today we are looking at risk.
Yes, of course we are. This is our Aura Quick sponsored episode, and we are looking at different forms of risk. This is it. This is going to be an interesting one.
Yes, and we've looked at risk before, haven't we? So we are looking at some other areas of risk we haven't covered before. And the first one, do you know, I can't believe we've not actually looked at this, but we've never looked at the actual risk of contracting HIV.
Have we not?
Not in terms of numbers.
Oh, you're right. I was going to say, though, if we had, I probably wouldn't remember. I'm not good with the numbers, Sarah, am I? I'm not good with the science.
No, definitely not. And as it turns out, nor am I. So I learned something with this one. So the actual risk of contracting HIV is 1 in 500.
What does that mean? Quantify that for me. Does that mean, in theory, if I'm having unprotected sex with someone that's positive and I am not positive and they have a detectable viral load? Is this what we're saying?
No, we're just looking at the general population. So if you decided to go out tomorrow night and have unprotected sex, what is your actual risk of contracting HIV?
Oh, I see. Without knowing if somebody's positive or not, what is that risk? Sorry, what was the numbers again?
1 in 500.
That feels quite high.
I think that's very high when you think how many people there are in the country.
1 in 500.
But it isn't all as clear cut as you think, because I was the same. Like, what? How does that actually compute? So first of all, to give everyone an indication of how awful I am at maths, I was thinking, right, so if you have unprotected sex with 500 different people, you're going to get HIV from one of them.
Yeah, that's what it's telling us, isn't it?
No, apparently not. It's all to do with probability. And the odds of probability are not always the same because so many factors come into play.
You're saying that something could change your entire odds just by one decision that you make in that day, right?
Yes, or because the odds aren't just affecting you, there's another person involved, or at least one other person involved.
At least Sarah in my sexual exploits, you know.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
No, not really. I couldn't cope with all that awkward social interaction. No, thank you. You carry on.
So we were saying if you had 500 people lined up to have sex, how do you know if number 2 has got HIV or number 499? But it does not work like that. As I said, it's all to do with probability. I'm going to keep saying that word because that's the most mathematician-like I've ever sounded.
It really is the laws of probability. That's what you're taking us through.
Yes. So the way to look at it is it's not an equal chance each time. So if anyone's listening to this going, oh, do you know what? I can risk it. Haven't slept with very many people. I've got another, 450 to go. No. The risk isn't equal each time because it depends on how many people the other person has slept with, if they're already positive, how high their viral load is. There are so many other factors that come into play that it's not as straightforward as it's not as straightforward as, you've got a 1 in a million chance of winning the lottery, for example.
There must be variables with that as well.
Yeah, I guess so. What numbers? If you pick number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, does that reduce the probability of you winning than if you picked random numbers?
Exactly. Or if you use the lucky dip, or if where you bought your ticket from, someone's already won from there. I'm guess it's a bit like lightning striking twice in the same place. Must be a bit like that, mustn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, definitely. And this is the same. So we don't want anyone thinking 1 in 500. Yep, those odds work for me. Let's go for it. It's just not.
Get counting down, just like crossing them off. Like, I'm getting near that 500. Like, no, that's not what it's like. Okay.
No. And it may be you could sleep with more than 500 people and you could never contract HIV, or you could just sleep with one. You could lose your virginity to somebody and contract it that day. That's how the odds work.
It's gambling, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Gambling with your health. Exactly right. So, as we said many times before, just use a condom.
Yes, that should be public health news strapline. Don't gamble with your health. Use a condom.
That's not bad, actually.
You basically came up with that, Sarah.
We did.
Well done.
I hope Sean's listening. I hope Sean's realising just how good we are.
The talent here. I hope public health are listening. They're probably not, though.
No, they're probably not.
Hi, public health, if you're listening. We'd love to work on a campaign. Let's do one. Let's do a national campaign.
No, they're too busy analysing statistics.
Yeah, or the ones that don't exist for trans people.
Oh, yeah, trying to find them.
Yeah. Too busy ignoring a whole community.
Right, shall we look at some other risks?
Yeah.
One of them is spitting. So can you catch HIV if someone spits?
I'm so glad you're going to talk about this, because this is one of the biggest questions that throughout almost 15 years that I've worked at TVPS, this is probably one of the top questions we still get asked about the risk, either via kissing. So not literally someone spitting at you, but if you think about, through kissing or oral sex. And I really hate that newspapers, there hasn't been one for a while, but do still seem to run these stories of HIV horror, someone spat at me. And it's like, no.
Oh, no. Well, a few years ago, I remember reading about this. The police were introducing spit hoods, weren't they?
Yeah.
But I don't think they wear them now.
Do they wear them, or does the person wear them?
No, the police were going to wear them, and it was to protect them from HIV and Hep C. It was a big waste of time for an HIV perspective, because you can't catch HIV from spitting. I mean, not that anyone wants to be spat at during their job, so I can understand wearing it from that point of view. But to say it's to stop HIV contraction, no, that's absolute rubbish. There are no recorded cases of anyone in the UK contracting HIV from spitting.
Nice. I'm going to use that as a perfect little soundbite, Sarah. Educate
Excellent.
everyone.
Slightly derailed by the fact that my attention's caught by the delivery man down the road.
Aren't you up high though? How can you see all the way down your road?
Up high. Yes, I live in the turret of a castle. I'm like Rapunzel.
Yeah, but I live in a bungalow, so nothing's high for me. Like, I'm just on the floor all the time.
Like, he always parks down the road, and I always think, just stop having your lunch break or whatever you're doing and just deliver my parcel.
Have you managed to get his name right yet? It's Gary, isn't it?
No, it's not Gary. It's the other one.
Don't even know his name.
No. Oh, anyway, look, this is very dull. Let's move on.
What are you having delivered? What you waiting for? Shh, don't tell Fraser.
Well, he's here. Nothing, just a top, an essential item of clothing.
Probably for work that you need to an important meeting that we have. Yeah. Okay, I like it. Yeah. Sounds like a necessity to me.
Right, moving on to, from spitting to biting. Okay, so there are only four highly plausible cases of HIV transmission resulting from a bite. In each case, the person with HIV had advanced, well, they call it advanced disease here, but AIDS is probably a better description. They were not on medication, so they would have had a very high viral load. The bite caused a deep wound, and the HIV positive person had blood in their mouth.
Yes, so it's not literally just from somebody just biting you. Again, lots of different variables that need to be present.
Yes. 2 of those cases were in the context of the person having a seizure and someone who was untrained in first aid trying to do a good thing and to protect their airway. So trying to keep their tongue out the way and then being bitten. So they weren't kind of deliberate bites.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you can understand why someone might have blood in their mouth, because if they're having a seizure and they're bitten their tongue or the side of their cheek, that does make sense.
I'll put the link for this report, but they said in the report that they found no cases of an emergency worker or police officer being infected with HIV because of a bite. So nobody's deliberately biting other people to pass on HIV.
No.
But they're also keen to point out that bite injuries are a really common reason for attending A&E. So a review of A&E admissions over a 4-year period at a hospital in the UK found that one person was admitted with a bite wound every 3 days.
What?
That's a lot.
Is that a human to human bite or like any kind of bite?
I don't know. It doesn't say, actually. It just says a bite wound. So it could have been being bitten by an animal, but...
A hamster, a feral hamster.
Oh, yes. I've been bitten by a hamster before. We had to look after that bleeping hamster from school.
Did it bite you? Ungrateful.
Yes, it did. Did bite me. It was literally hanging off my finger. Honestly, I mean, I was so stressed anyway that the thing would die over the weekend and I'd have to go back to school on the Monday with, I'm so sorry, but here is dead. They called it Turkey. The kids in the class chose the name Turkey for it, which is...
I love that. I think that's sort of brilliant. You don't... I love it. Turkey. Turkey the hamster.
Yeah, Turkey the hamster. It was a vicious, vicious little thing. Kids wouldn't go near it all weekend.
Oh my God, this is all the bites people go to A&E, Sarah. It's all the parents who are having to look after, like the classroom pet.
Classroom pet, yeah.
Ravaged by it.
There you go. So anyway, generally, if someone bites you, you will not catch HIV, even if they draw blood. HIV can't be passed by saliva, so their saliva getting into your bloodstream won't make a difference. Right, tattoos. Now, I have to say that most of these other ones are based on things that I've heard at the centre, either from service users or from people that we've tested.
Yeah.
Where they're adamant I've been at risk because I went to a tattoo place.
Yes, I have also heard that, yes.
Okay, so theoretically, it could be transmitted if you're not using sterile equipment. But even then, I mean, it is highly, highly unlikely. And reputable tattooists, I mean, they use, I don't know, did they get the needle out in front of you?
Yeah.
So
they don't do it in a sort of like we would, like when we're testing, where we very much show, look, this is an unopened needle, but they'll open the packet in front of you. Yeah.
Okay. That being said, if you go abroad and have a tattoo, they will not have the same rules that they have over here around hygiene. So that is something to bear in mind.
Yeah, because obviously you bleed a lot, well, depending on the tattoo. So they're really strict here. They're really good, and they, you fill in forms beforehand. And good tattooists these days, I have to say, have stopped stating HIV on there. They just say any kind of bloodborne viruses, any bloodborne illnesses, and you tick that or you don't, and that's it. And they don't ask further questions because the protocol should be the same, right?
Why do they need to ask? I've never got that.
Yeah, I don't know, because if you're being safe, you're being safe, right?
Yeah. What does it matter?
So it shouldn't matter. I suppose, I don't know, this is probably a real stretch, but is it to do with the fact that obviously you have to sign consent forms, you have to put like a emergency contact and things like that? Is it if you were to pass out or have some kind of really bad reaction? I mean, a lot of people do pass out when they're having a tattoo, don't they?
I don't know. It's like dentists. I've asked my dentist about this because it's on that health form you fill in. Yeah. And I was like, well, why ask about HIV? And she said it's so they know what medication you're taking. That's the only reason they need to know.
Well, that makes more sense. That makes more sense than a tattooist asking.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. It does.
So
tattooists, stop being so nosy.
Yeah, man.
Thousands of them getting in touch going, no, we have to do it for our insurance or whatever.
Do you know what? Ben is actually booked in to have another tattoo in a couple of weeks. Literally next week, I think, actually. I'll get him to ask his tattooist.
Okay, body piercings. That's another one I've been asked about before. No, again, it's a sterile needle. Any good practitioner, I don't know what you call them, should be opening a needle in front of you, or at least opening a needle nearby so that you can see that it's brand new.
Yeah. They tend to, don't they, when they're getting everything ready, you're sat there, and I always feel like it's just to amp up the tension, make you just extra terrified. Like get like pliers and things out.
Oh gosh. Okay. Oh, I was asked this one the other week. Cosmetic surgery, Botox or lip fillers.
This is interesting because this is, again, I feel like Botox, lip fillers, all these dermal abrasion things, I don't know what they are, but I feel like they've become much more accessible in the last few years. Whereas it used to be, you'd go to somewhere like Harley Street, I suppose, or something. Now it seems that they are, I don't know if they're cheaper, but they just seem to be much more affordable and sort of in our high streets, don't they?
Yes, or mobile services. I saw someone advertising on Facebook the other day, a mobile lip filler service. I was just like, oh, I don't know. I mean, I'm not into all that anyway. But I suppose there's a couple of things to think about, isn't there? One, that industry isn't regulated. So you do need to be careful who you use. But again, and if you're not sure, ask them about, do you use a clean needle each time, and find out more about what you're going to have done to you.
Yeah. And
you're kind of Harley Street, I'm guessing you'll be okay, but I think everyone just needs to be on their kind of guard, really, don't they?
I think you're right. I think we get a bit nervous of being like, look, can you just talk me through this and what's your safety practices? I think we feel, or I don't know, I'm saying I certainly feel like I'm almost putting someone out. Like it's rude, like me asking those questions is insinuating that they're bad at their job. And actually, it shouldn't be that way. You should be able to ask those questions to feel confident in a service that you're having.
Yeah, and to check that whoever's doing the service is qualified. No, we don't always do that, do we? Maybe me and you should set up some sort of cosmetic surgery.
Oh, I would love that. You know how much I love doing makeup and stuff. Oh, I would be in my element. Although I feel like I'd pressure people to just do more things. I'd be like, oh, let's do more filler here. Let's lift your eyebrows.
Yeah, let's not do that. Right, dentists we've talked about already. So no risk of HIV transmission. They clean thoroughly after each patient, which is why it doesn't make sense if you're HIV positive and they ask you to be the last patient of the day. No, you don't need to be.
Yeah, that's crazy, isn't it? I mean, that happened for such a long time, didn't it? Where dentists would book people in last person of the day, like you're saying. So you should be having good healthcare and safety practices, hygiene practices. That's what I'm searching for. You should have good hygiene practices anyway.
Oh, you'd hope so, wouldn't you?
I mean, you really would. You really would. The dentist is, not everyone's favourite thing. So at the very least, you hope it's, well maintained.
Sharing drug equipment. Needles, yes. Snorting, no. Passing around a joint or a pipe, no. Talked about this in the past because of the Daily Mail headlines. So, needles found in a park and all the children are probably now HIV positive if you read the Daily Mail. No, because it's a dirty old needle, which is gross. I get that, but there isn't an HIV risk with that. But if you're sharing needles whilst taking drugs and the person next to you shares their needle that they've just injected themselves with, and then you inject yourself, yes, danger. Never do that.
Yeah, no, don't do that. No sharing these. And there are so many places where you can get disposable needles from really easily. And, you can get your own little sharps box or go and dispose them at a chemist in their sharps box. It's very accessible these days. There should be no need to share needles.
What else? Donating blood? No. Lots and lots of checks in place for that.
And they're very good with that. They even check if you're ill or if you're, have you been abroad? They check a million questions, to be honest.
Do they?
Yes, yeah. You have like a big checklist that you have to fill in every time. And so when you first go in, you sit down with a nurse and they do a little finger prick and they put your blood. Oh, I'm going to ask them actually the next time I go. I know that's to see if you're well or not, but I don't actually know what it's checking for. And they see if your blood sinks or floats.
No.
Yeah. So they do that. And then if you pass the first bit with the nurse, then you move on and go and give your full amount of blood.
Do you still get biscuits?
Oh, yeah, Sarah, you get brilliant biscuits, squash, Club Bar, mini cheddars.
Ooh.
It's a treat. It really is.
Not that that's the only reason I would go.
Well, they've started doing a campaign where they were enticing people in with all the great snacks that they have. And I was like, why not?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
Blood transfusions, no, in the UK.
Yeah.
I haven't actually looked into around the rest of the world, as this is a UK-based podcast.
Exactly. And a lot of the things that I realised when I was just chatting away about how easy it is to get needles. Again, I'm talking about in the UK. I'm sure it's not quite that simple for everyone everywhere. And also, by the way, we just added a new country. So we are on quite a sexy number of 169 countries now.
But what was the last country, the newest one?
I tried to go through it, so it won't let me drill it down. It won't let me go backwards in time and look. I think it's either the Syrian Arab Republic, Anguilla, American Samoa, Gibraltar, Isle of Man, San Martin, Martinique, the Maldives, or the Turks and Caicos Islands.
Any of those I would be up for visiting.
But it's one of those that's brand new.
Oh, please let the Maldives invite us there.
They might do now. We'll do like a
Okay.
round the world tour. We'll just go around the world, Sarah. It'll be like 80 days around the world with Sarah and Jess.
Right. The last risk is sharing razors. There's no risk in sharing kind of razors.
Okay, because I've heard that as well from a service user.
But do you want to hear two unusual cases of HIV transmission that involved, one of them involved a razor?
Yes.
Because when I was checking up on risks, this came to light, but it's in the 90s. So we're not talking about risk in the modern day.
Okay. Is it very gruesome?
No.
Oh, I thought you would say it was like using a razor to like slit someone's throat or no?
No, you dark person.
Misjudged that.
Yeah, totally. No, we are looking at there's two unconnected cases of HIV transmission within two Australian families. This was reported in the September the 5th issue of AIDS. What a name for a publication, but we are in the 90s. So the first concerned a 16-year-old girl and her 18-year-old sister who shared a bathroom at their family home. The younger sister became aware of her HIV infection after donating blood in 1999. She'd never had sex, and there were no other risk factors for her acquiring HIV. Both her parents were negative. So it was a mystery. Where did she get HIV from? Her older sister was subsequently found to be HIV antibody positive. And she recalled having symptoms of seroconversion in January 1997, 1 month after her first ever sexual encounter with a Russian man. So they analysed these results and they found that both the younger and older sister were infected with Russian type subtype A. That's what they called it. And they knew that that type was very, very rare in Australia. So they're pretty much like, it's got to have come from this Russian guy. So that then led to the conclusion that the older sister had infected the younger sister. But how?
Yeah, how?
Well, the only risk factor that they could come up with, and they interviewed the whole family quite rigorously to kind of say, what on earth's going on here, was that on occasions, the older and younger sister had shared the same razor to shave body hair. And that was the only thing that the scientists could think of. That could have
so where maybe one had like nicked their leg, like cut it a bit, and then the other one maybe used it straight after.
Yeah.
Oh, that is, again, we're talking about variables and chances. That is, the odds of that happening are so slim, aren't they?
Yeah, really, really slim. But yeah, so that's one case.
Okay.
There's another case as well, also in Australia. What was going on in Australia?
What was happening? Or were they just really good at recording these freak events?
Yeah, they might have been. So the second case concerns a 55-year-old woman and her son, who was in his early 30s. Now, the mum first became aware of her HIV infection after donating blood in 1997.
The blood donation people, I just have to butt in here, Sarah, because well done to them. They're picking up a lot of HIV.
They are. They really were back then, weren't they?
Yeah.
Now, the mum's been married for 25 years and said she had no sexual partners during that period other than her husband. Her husband was negative. Can you imagine the conversations in that house?
Okay, so did they ever? How? I can't say words. I'm so shocked.
There was a daughter. So the daughter, she was also negative. So it's just the mum and the son that are positive. Son had been living in Thailand and reported very occasional unprotected sex during his time there. He tested positive. And he moved home for 6 months in December 1996. During that time, he had active psoriasis, which is like a skin condition.
Yeah.
So they analysed the mum and the son. They found they were infected with the same subtype, which is subtype E this time, common in Thailand, very rare in Australia. So they concluded that the son had infected the mum. But how?
How?
The only risk factor they could find was that the mum had been applying a topical cream to the son's psoriasis lesions. But she reported they were dry. They weren't bleeding.
But what about her hands? What were on her hands?
This is why it doesn't make sense. The scientists ruled out lotion or the cream that she'd been using. They said, you can't, it's highly unlikely you could have contracted HIV through that.
Yeah.
And they ruled it out because there'd been no other cases in the world. So the light was just not really feasible. So then they started to think, well, maybe they shared a razor. And the truth is, with the second cases, they don't really know, because the son wasn't very forthcoming with information.
Right.
So they interviewed all the family face to face, and he was like, no, I don't want to be interviewed face to face, and I want to answer my questions in writing. He also had Hep C, so they thought maybe he was an injecting drug user. But even then, that only kind of establishes more how he contracted HIV. It doesn't establish how he passed it on to his mum. And they concluded in the end that they don't know how the mum contracted HIV from her son, because they just didn't have enough information to kind of make an informed decision.
Well, yeah, and if he would only reply in writing, it's not like having a conversation where you can ask someone to expand on something, is it? It was very controlled, actually, isn't it? Which leads me to believe he knew more.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. But then how did the mum contract it? I mean, you'd have to be really unlucky. If she got it from his psoriasis, then, I mean, what are the chances of that?
Yeah, this is what I'm thinking. I mean, who knows? But how funny that they were both in Australia, though.
Yes, I mean, there've probably been other cases around the world, but these are the two that I picked up on.
Yeah.
Because they were really rare. And I think the thing to emphasise here, for the UK in 2023, the most common route of transmission is unprotected sex. Yeah. By far and away the most common.
And I think, we do see people who have been diagnosed, and I understand it can be extremely difficult, but we do occasionally see people who will look for any other reason and go and research, and it's why we felt an episode like this would be quite important. And also the questions we get asked by the wider community around, I had a tattoo and now I got a rash, so I must be positive. It's helping to dispel myths, Sarah. Well done.
Well, there you go. That's our risk episode complete.
That was a very, very good one, because now I can just say to people, well, obviously I'll answer their question. I'm not just going to be like, no, go and listen to a podcast, not telling you anything. Do the homework yourself. Not going to do that. But I will be able to say to people, for more information, go and have a listen to the whole thing.
Yes, I'm going to say that. The next time someone comes in to test with us and asks if I want to see their rash, which I'm just going to say
the answer's always no, isn't it? The answer's
I mean, if you are going to an HIV charity to be tested for HIV or anything else, never. They don't want to see the symptoms that you think you've got, especially in the genital area. No.
Yeah, no. And no pictures either, even if you're sort of WhatsApping with us and talking about coming to test and why you're concerned. I would just signpost people gently to the local sexual health clinic. No photos.
No pictures asking us if you're too small or too big. We're just two women.
Yeah.
We don't know everything there is to know about penises. So don't bother yourself sending us pictures.
Yeah. No unsolicited dick pics over here. No, thank you. Well, that was a very, very good or a quick sponsored episode. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Our work here is done.
Isn't it? But do you know what? I've got to show you this. Do you remember I had that massive water?
Oh my God. Have you got a rash?
Yeah. And a dick pic for you. I've got both coming at you.
What's the name going to make an appearance now?
Fanny Vaneka. No. I've got a bit of an obsession with water bottles. It's such an aside, but I have to show you because I feel like you'll be impressed. I've got a new one. It's my new, it's making me so happy. I don't know why it makes me so happy.
What was wrong with the old barrel? Oh, that one's better. The other one was like a water butt.
Yeah. It really was. I could have just used it in, collect all the water from the rainfall and then just used it for my baths, couldn't I? It was huge with that big handle. Well, it just didn't keep anything cold enough. So you put all your drink in it, don't you? And then it would just warm up because it's room temperature. Carry around like 2.5 litres of water a day. And this one, so I've got a new one that's like a massive cup with a straw. It's insulated. And look, because it goes small, it goes in a cup holder in the car.
Good God. It's still it's as big as your head.
No, and I've got a big head, as we know. It's good, isn't it? I'm not putting a link below or anything. I'm not selling it. I'm literally just genuinely excited about it.
Not a sponsored ad.
But I love it. It's my new favourite thing.
You're so easily pleased.
I know, aren't I? You need to be more easily pleased. I need you to just be pleased with like a cup like me, Sarah.
No. This is not cup chat, is it?
I'll bring in my assortment. I've got so many, you know. Maybe we'll see if one like takes your fancy, if you're drawn to one of my many, many water bottles that bring me joy.
No, it's just something else to carry. And we know how many bags I already bring when we come into the centre.
You do have a lot of bags. You've got a lot of things,
I don't
Sarah.
understand it though. Why do I have so many? It's so weird. Maybe it's a mum thing.
I don't know, but well, thank you very much for that episode and also for indulging me with Cup Chat. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
But we're going back to finish off our trans sort of mini series that wasn't supposed to be a mini series, aren't we?
Yes, it's very much an unintentional mini series, but we've got one more episode to do of that next week. In fact, over the next few months, we have got so many exciting episodes. It's going to be an amazing summer.
It's going to be a mad HIV podcasting roller coaster.
It is indeed, yes.
And please go and vote for us for the Listeners' Choice Awards on the British Podcast Awards. There's a link on our highlight. Now, I know we're not going to get anywhere near the amount of votes that some of these absolutely huge podcasts are, but wouldn't it be brilliant if we, you know, got enough to kind of make a bit of a dent to show people this is a subject that people do want to hear about it. We are all normalising HIV. Like, it would be really nice to do it. So you could go and give us a little vote. That'd be brilliant.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Yeah, do it. Go and vote. This week's episode of the HIV podcast is sponsored by AuraQuick. AuraQuick HIV self-tests give you more control, allowing you to test yourself accurately anytime, anywhere using an oral fluid sample. No blood, no needles, just results in 20 minutes. AuraQuick is easy, painless, proven and private. Available from the Terence Higgins Trust, Superdrug, Amazon and pharmacies throughout the UK. Additional information can be found at uk.auraquick.com.
Thanks for listening to the HIV podcast. If you enjoyed our podcast, please like, rate and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts.
You can now also follow us on Instagram and TikTok at the HIV podcast for behind the scenes insights and video. The HIV podcast is produced by Thames Valley Positive Support.